Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool. And with a lot of things that are kind of in the EDC category, I have decided that what I'm going to really look at now with a lot of them is the specific use applied to maybe a purpose, like a purpose-driven choice. And for instance, I got this THRUNITE Catapult Mini. Kind of was offered to me by THRUNITE, and I studied it a little, and then I said yes, absolutely, for this very reason, and it works fabulous in this configuration, which allows me to use binoculars at night because it throws such an extremely narrow but very long-reaching beam, and it's very small, so I can easily attach it directly to my small set of binoculars here. And I also thought, I do a lot of dog walking at night with my dog, and I tried using this, and it works for distance. And that's important around here because it's very dark, and there's a lot of wildlife, sometimes two-legged, mostly four-legged. And a lot of times I would carry this in my pocket, standard Surefire E2D Defender. Two things about this. One, it has 2 speeds full on, which this particular one's 500 lumens. The newest version, I think, is 1,000, and 5 lumens. So it basically has primarily one usable speed for what I'm after. If I'm picking up dog poop or something, sometimes the 5 lumen works great for that. But most of the time I want to see what's way out ahead, but it doesn't have a huge throw. It has a very nice area light that reaches out in the distance. But I'm always a little restless, so I'm looking for other things. One of them was this giant Nebo, and this thing was massive at 12,000 lumens. It's pretty impressive, but it's more like lights up an arena. It doesn't reach out and grab, something very far away. In fact, it has a fairly limited range, which kind of surprised me. When I used it, it was neat, but it wasn't really a good dog walking light. It lit up everything in a very small area. So, when I would take this thing out, I thought this is halfway there, and I went back to THRUNITE, and they originally released this Catapult V6, and this is the SS, you can see that SST70, and that has to do with the particular LED emitter that's in there. This is a much larger light. Let me pop this guy free of its bonds to this this pair of binoculars here and show you the difference. So I was excited about this. Very small, disappears in your hand or your pocket. And I tried it dog walking. Very narrow beam. It's kind of neat. It taught me a lot, especially if I'm out in the forest or something. And so I went back to the THRUNITE site to study this one a little bit more. This has been out a while, lots of reviews. And I contacted my friend at THRUNITE and said, I want to try one of these out. I think this right now, this THRUNITE Catapult V6 is the ultimate dog walking late at night light, period. I've used, a whole bunch. I take them out every single day. This right now is my new favorite. When I compared it to some of the real critical reviews, looks like THRUNITE listened. I don't see any of the standard issues that people had mentioned, a rough spot here or there, a wiggly switch here, or maybe anodization that wasn't even. I don't notice any of that. This thing is a monster. If we look at the actual details of it, it does throw, you can see this 2,800 lumens on turbo, or 1,400 basically on high, all the way down to 0.3, which is an interesting one. Low is about 30, which is plenty good for what I need this for. So I can actually light up the whole area right in front where I'm walking, but I can also see out hundreds and hundreds of yards if there's anything out there. So that's why this thing really, really shines. If I show you some of the beam dispersal, turn this on, you can see it isn't quite as narrow as something like this. It's a little harder to see. This is actually providing a way narrower beam. But what doesn't show up is that this actually lights up a much larger area, whereas this thing is a hot spot. The hot spot is actually really good if that's what you want, but sometimes if I'm in closer quarters, you know, a forested area or a wide open field where I need to be able to see the terrain in front of me as well as what's way out in the distance, this thing is magical. If I had one complaint, it's that I use this a lot and it's got a rubber cover right here. Let me move this out to get a better exposure. It's got a rubber cover. I imagine that's going to wear out. This really needs a solid, big, snapping, popping rubber piece there because I crack this open every single day to charge this up because I never leave out at night with a lower charge. A couple of the fun things. One is I can hold it down. It actually is on. It's barely on. That's that 1/3 of aluminum. I'm pointing at I'm pointing it right at the camera. You know, it doesn't blow out the camera. So I can always start it out super low. Then if I hold it down, it ramps up. You can see there's a little bit of an artifact there. That disappears immediately. I mean, I'm a foot away from the light and it's gone. And I can hold that down and then ramp up through the standard low, medium, high. So I can start out at that firefly mode, that little tiny 3rd lumen, and then I can move it up. So I'm in total control of where this is going to begin. Or I can double click it and immediately throw, boy, I can feel the heat, really throw out the light with the turbo mode. And then if I triple click it, it'll go to the strobe. One of the things I'm working on right now is how to attach it to myself. Sometimes it's pretty cold out here, so I need it outside of my coat. I'm not going to carry it in a pocket, and I'm working with different gloves trying to find a way to orient it. And I think it might be nice to have something that helps me differentiate between a bump here and a bump here because I can't feel the difference with gloves on. So I've started, for wearing it, using this around my neck, and this I actually pulled off my fly fishing net, which basically allows me a magnetic connection so I can pull this free if I want to, but it's also plenty strong. That isn't going to go anywhere. It could fall down a mountain and it'd probably stay connected. This little guy here, I don't know if you can see it, this is White River. They make all kinds of them, but these magnetic clasps that fit together are just, they're almost bomb-proof. It takes, I don't know, 5 pounds of pressure or something to pull it off. In fact, the first one of these I tried, when I yanked it, I was holding onto the flashlight, and basically the split ring I installed just spun out into a piece of wire because it was that strong. So anyway, I've been using this thing to try to get it dialed in, a lanyard around my neck. It's still set up for my fishing net, but I do find that this thing works great, and then I can free it up if I want for another hand or whatever, and then snaps together. And you can do that easily one-handed. That's what's magical about these. You can see all I got to do is get it close, and it's self-centered, locked in tight. But anyway, this thing to me right now is almost the perfect dog walking light at night, which also means it might be one of the best walking at night lights. It has been around for a little while, not terribly long, but once you get used to what this thing does, these kinds of throwing lights or throwers that have a bit of a dispersal as well, which limits them. I mean, people complain that the dispersal takes away from the throwing, and you can see that there's a big difference the way that's got a focusing center. This one doesn't. By the way, both these are glass. That's it's a big chunk of glass there. It actually has just an excellent amount of light both in front of you and at a huge distance. And that's something, this one's pretty good around and a little bit of the distance. This one's just around you. I was sadly disappointed with this guy. And now that I use this, you know, almost every day since I got it, I can say, if you do walks at night, think about one of these. I think right now that's the best light I've encountered for my evening strolls. And with that, Doc out.